Welcome to the New Indian Woman, and I'm your host Krishna. In this podcast, we will examine the challenges faced by us in managing our lives and our families. In each episode, we will also look at the techniques that worked for different women, examine how to adapt it for us in today's context, and learn from each other. You will get actionable strategies set in the Indian context on a wide variety of topics, right from identifying your passion to better productivity and parenting. Welcome to episode 22, airing in late July 2020. In today's episode, we have Usha Mukunda. And Usha Mukunda is familiar to all librarians and to a lot of children. Usha aunty, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning to you, Krishna, and greetings to all your listeners. I gather that you call your podcast The New Indian Woman. So let me share with you right away that I am an old Indian woman, but hopefully young in thought, feeling, and maybe even communication. Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a school and children's librarian who has become more and more passionate about having open libraries and engaging with children in conversations around books. That is what I'm very passionate about.
She's putting it in a very humble manner. The name of the podcast is New Indian Woman. And the immediate image many people get is of a young, ambitious woman in modern clothes. But for me, you represent the New Indian Woman. Because when you just walk to some place, there is confidence, the cheer you spread around, you interact with everybody with a sense of humility. There is so much energy around you. I'm in awe of you every time around you. You have told me to call you by name, but I cannot. I'm sorry. I'll call you Usha aunty.
Okay.
So while in your current avatar, you are a librarian, lover of books, interact with children, I would like to talk about your early stages and the phenomenal things that you have done. Maybe for the benefit of all the listeners, maybe we will discuss your life in 4 parts, if it is okay with you.
Fine.
Listeners, I want you to listen to this very carefully because in each decade or every so often, Usha aunty has created a new avatar for herself. So the first avatar, I would say, is of a table tennis player and not a very small table tennis player. So you want to talk about that, Usha aunty?
You've already said so many good things about me, and I would not like to kind of make too much of myself. But I'll just share with all of you that at the age of 12, I started playing table tennis in a very informal way with a ball boy, actually. But I just loved the game, and the two of us would play for hours. Then someone spotted me and said, oh, you need to enter into some state championships. And, it didn't make much sense to me. And I think my parents just let me, but I won that already. So from the age of 12 to the age of 28 years, I became the Bengal champion. During that period, I was representing Bengal in the national championships and once represented India also for the Asian championships. So in brief, my life consisted between 12 and 20, let's say, of a lot of table tennis, but I was also a lover of books even then.
Okay. Again, putting it very mildly, because when I see the achievements and I want to put it out there in the show notes, she was no less than a celebrity. Because, there are those so many achievements of national third, then going to the US, playing there, winning there, coming back. And after marriage, continuing to play table tennis, again winning. It is phenomenal. The second stage is marriage, children, and their early education reaching till your 40s. How would you look back on that period?
Yeah, it's interesting because for all of you young people, probably you can't really enter into how we were at those times. It was a kind of a time when we drifted along, at least I would say I did, because table tennis was very much part of my life. But for the rest of it, I hadn't really thought what I might do in future academically or even table tennis. I was just in the present, I would say. And when marriage came along, that also I went into it quite happily, no problems, always with a sense of what's going to come now? What will happen now? I was always meeting things with a lot of enthusiasm and positivity. That's how it was. So anyway, we were in the US and everything was new. I made a lot of new friends. So all that went very well. Then children, and of course, as Krishna told you, I did manage to play. One of the things I think that I should tell you that I did was whenever there was chance to do something outside the home, I took it. In the sense that when we were in Princeton, New Jersey, I had a 1-year-old child and my husband was extremely busy with his research. So what is it that I can do outside the home? And so I decided, I put an ad in the local newspaper and said, anybody interested in doing play reading sessions informally, contact me. And about 6 or 7 did contact me, and every week we would meet at one house or the other, because by the way, in the meantime, I had learned how to drive, so I was independent. So we would meet each week, and the person whose home it was in would select the play, and we would just read, take parts and read. That was the time when my interest in drama or theatre began. So that was one. And then in another ad, I heard about 10 miles away, there was a weekly club in table tennis. So I just put in my name, went there, and I played. And that's how, from that selection, I went to the national US table tennis championship.
So how did you manage that with young children?
Yeah, I had just one at that time.
Yes.
And my husband was completely supportive. See, my husband is the kind of person who will not push anybody into anything. I mean, now if I look at how he is with the children, he's the same. He won't push. But if they come up with something that they want to do, all the support will be there. So I think it's the same thing with me. I would wait thinking, okay, will he suggest or push me? But that was the wrong thing. I had to do it myself. That was a lesson I learned, that if I do it, if I plunge into something, he'll be there for me. So I just went ahead, and it was an evening thing. Both of these were evening events. So he would be at home, and I had just one child at that time, and he would look after her. That was in the US.
Okay.
Now, when we came back, that was about 4 or 5 years later, we came back to Bombay. That was also an interesting time, because from there, I found that there was a car gymkhana close by, walked up, found that they had table tennis, and I became a member there. That's also an interesting story, because the people there didn't know my background. So they said, we don't allow new members, we don't take in unless we test you out in table tennis. I said, okay, do that. Poor chaps. I feel bad now at their red faces after that. So I joined there and then played in the league and then played for Maharashtra, and then we won. That was lovely, because suddenly there was something new coming up. And then we moved to Colaba, and from there again, I started playing table tennis, and also because it was a big building, I decided to start some interaction with children there, because I started a wall magazine, children would contribute, we would have meetings and discussions. Then I decided, okay, not just children, let's get the women also doing something. So we started a residence ladies club, and we would have many little pockets like cooking club, reading club, discussion club. So actually, you have helped me to look back over those times and see that my life was not completely blank.
Thank you. Here, I just wanted to highlight one aspect for the listeners. In all the people that I interview, one thing common is they're always keeping their eyes and ears open, looking for opportunities, trying to do something or the other. Doesn't matter where it will take me to, but they are engaged in many things.
Very nice.
And I was thinking when you said my husband was very supportive, whether people would immediately stop the podcast and say, okay, in my life that doesn't apply, and switch off. So I hope people have not done that, because there is so much one can do. Yes, supportive partner really helps. But there is so much of learning from what you were saying about what you try to do. I wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah.
During this period, did you feel that you were sacrificing for the family? Why I am asking that is, when I take sessions with young women, when I meet women, many of them go through this, okay, I have left my job, I have to do this. This is a sacrifice, where there is this story of self-pity which is there. They may have their own reasons, but I'm very curious to know, when you look back now, a young Usha auntie, did you feel you were sacrificing? You had the capability to do so much more?
It's an interesting question, because I think I didn't think in that way as long as we're in the US. And then even after that, when we came back to Bombay, where, there was a sense, I had the feeling of independence, okay, and thinking, okay, if I can organize something, then nobody will stop me and there will be support. But it had to be me. It had to be me who initiated it. That's important. So if your listeners are listening, it's not enough to hear that, oh, I have a supportive family. That's not it. Even with a supportive family, they are kind of in the background. I have to show that I want to do something, take the first step, maybe more than the first step, and then there's a feeling, I don't want to diminish their support, but maybe there's a feeling that, okay, she's into it now, so we should just be there for her, or we will be there for her. I think that is very, very important. But the feelings that you shared, that many people have, I did feel it when we moved to Bangalore. I must have been about in my mid-30s at that time, or early 30s by then. And it was a very different scene here. There was too many family responsibilities, larger family, both parents from both sides were there. They were getting older. There was a feeling that they needed help, and my children were growing up. I have 3. So there were times when I was feeling very, very morose and kind of almost like resenting everything that was happening, because my husband is a scientist and he travels a lot. So he would be away for, say, sometimes 3 months, 6 months at a time. And I felt, because I was driving everything in the house, everybody in the neighborhood and the family were expecting me to drive them around. And my whole life seemed to center around just home, children, in-laws, driving people. Yeah. So I went through quite a bit of downturn over there, where I was not expressing it fully, but yes, self-pity, all the things you mentioned, I definitely went through that. How did I get out of it? I think it just happened when, again, I had to make the move. See, when I slumped, I got into a rut and I didn't think what I could do next. And as I was approaching 40 or just past 40, without noticing my age, I said to myself, my youngest child is going to full day school now. So I don't have to be there. I don't have to be feeling bad. That was there, not guilt, but see, it's an old term thing that you have to be there for the children when they come home. Me being at home when they came, I'm not a great cook or anything, but me being there to give them some treats and things was very much a part of my consciousness, right? Nobody was telling me or insisting, but it was understood. And I couldn't think of how I could break through that. It was like an invisible shield around me.
Putting it so nicely, because now all the media influence and so much of awareness for the good or bad is making that invisible shield a very opaque shield.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very interesting to maybe then get on to this third stage, where you decide to earn an additional degree. Could you just talk about coming out of that low point and how you chose to do that?
Yeah, even now when I think about it, I wonder what it was. It was almost like some spiritual moment almost. In fact, my husband was out of the country and I suddenly, I saw this ad that Bangalore University is opening for applications to various departments. And I thought, hey, why don't I do this? Why don't I apply? I was full in terms of time. Whatever I was doing, taking care of children, taking care of the house, being there for my in-laws, my day was full. So it was not like I suddenly felt there is time. But you know how they say time management is important?
Right.
But I feel it was mind management at that time, honestly. Yeah. It was something to do with the mind. I had to manage things in my mind and say, let me try this.
Yeah.
And then I did try. And of course, to cut a long story short, I was so horrified and shocked when they said, no admission for you. And I even went to the university all the way and said, why? I met the head. And she said, look at your degree percentage, which was some 60 odd, which is supposed to be very good for literature in those times. And she said, look at all the other applicants, 90, 95, 96. So I said, what? You mean you're not going to take somebody in who wants to do this course? By the way, it was a library and information science course, which I decided on.
So 60% when you were in your 20s was such a remarkable achievement, but it was being compared with a
with the current applicants who had 90, 95. So then I said, my God, what is this? I can't get in. And she saw my interest and she said, I wish I could somehow take you in, but sorry, it's too late. So that year I had to give up. So I waited, but I didn't give up. I don't know, by then it had taken hold of my mind.
And I would presume maybe at that time you had no idea of what it is going to lead you to.
No, not at all. I just thought I had wanted to work with children in a school library, and I was told by most people, no, you need a certificate.
Okay.
I said, okay. These days, by the way, that's not at all necessary. If you have the will and you have the passion and you have the ability, you can walk in and become a librarian. But anyway, so then the next year, I thought, okay, I will apply early and so on. I mean, I don't know, so naive, in a way determined, but in another way very naive, because all my confidence in my early years was from table tennis, not from anything else. It was in a very narrow field.
It is a very significant point that you are making, especially relevant in today's age, where parents tend to ask the children to be focused only on academics. The confidence they gain, they may not become a national player or whatever, but the confidence they gain from playing sports, from doing many other things, may actually help out in many other areas.
Yeah, that's true actually. When I look back, I think that's true because I always had table tennis to fall back on. Well, I'll tell you this little bit where I did fall back on that. The next year I applied, it was the same story, and that lady who was the head of the department, lovely lady, dynamic librarian, she said to me, what has changed? I said, I thought you might have changed, I said. She said, no. She said, I'm sorry, I'm bound by the rules of the university and that doesn't change. So I said, no, I have to get in. Please think of something. Then she thought and she said, see, there are just two categories where we can take in. One is, those days it was called handicapped, okay? That was not a nice way. And she said, I know that you won't qualify for that. And the other is sports, she said, in a very low voice. My goodness, my ears just turned wide open and I said, what, sports? You have a quota? And she said, yes. I said, well, take me in on that. She said, what? You mean you have some certificates? I said, I have a cupboard full of trophies. Then she also perked up because she had wanted me to come and seeing my enthusiasm and then said, okay, bring something and I'll show it. My only question that I had to ask was, is there anybody else who has applied for this quota? Because at my age, I didn't want to stop someone else from getting in.
So nice of you.
No, not like that. I did feel that. But I got in and it was lovely. I felt as young as any of them and they also, even now, they are close friends of mine, 20 years younger, but very close friends.
So here I want to mull over some details because you were saying after coming to Bangalore, there is this larger extended family, parents taking care of them and children. It's not as if when they go to full day school, the problems just morph into some other problems. Lot of issues, lot of logistics, lot of day-to-day survival mode issues are there. So how was it? It was not a correspondence course, right? So you had to go to college. No. You had to manage all your responsibilities. People just assume, okay, she might have had a cook, she might have had this, that kind of help. No. So could you just tell about how it was?
Yeah, sure. So it was not correspondence by my choice. I felt that if it's correspondence, again, I'll slump into this mode of just being at home. And I wanted to get out of the house. That was very important for me. So yes, it was very tough actually. I remember that I would study at night, late at night after the children had gone to bed and whatever homework or whatever had to be done. But I think gradually, the younger two children, began to appreciate that mom is doing something that she's very interested in. And my older daughter was already in college. She was at a hostel. So there were many things we had to handle, but I think somehow I was on the merry-go-round or I was on the way and I just did not want to jump off. That's all I can say.
So here again, one more question. So when we hear stories of women who had to struggle, maybe for livelihood-related reasons, they went for a course. We hear so many stories and hats off to them for that. But for you, you were doing something optional. In the sense, it was not that you had to do this to take care. When you have to do something to ensure good education for children, it is kind of seen differently by everybody around you. People around you, did you feel what would they say? Or they might have also said, why should she go for a course now? Any need? Those kind of voices. So how were you affected, or did you choose not to get affected by it?
Definitely there were voices feeling like, oh, husband is so busy with work, children are growing up, why is she doing this after all these years? What is the point? What is the need? Certainly there were voices, not in the immediate family, but slightly around. But those are voices which do make themselves heard, I'm afraid. I think, if I remember, I have a very understanding mother-in-law. And actually, the saddest thing is, soon after I began the course, she had a stroke. And I still remember that I took her to hospital. I was sitting in next to her bed, studying for my first test with my papers. And she opened her eyes, she looked at me and she waved me like she was saying, go away, go away. And then I said, what are you saying? And she pointed to my books and said, go. I was just so amazingly touched by that, because she is somebody who was prevented from studying at the age of 9 after marriage. And I didn't even know that she had it in her to feel appreciation for what, because all her daughters are very well educated. But I didn't think to myself that she would be that kind of person, because, sorry to say, all around people were saying, oh, mother-in-law is in hospital, mother-in-law has had a stroke and she's going. So to some extent, I told myself the most important person is this person who is in hospital, and she's telling me, go and study. And I said, I'm not going to listen to any other voices. It was tough. It was not easy, I'll tell you that. I was torn and all that, but I tried my best to be there for her and do the course.
And did you, during the course, also feel torn about whether you were giving enough attention to your children? Did you feel guilty? Like you could have easily compared. Earlier I was doing this, now I am unable to do this. I am just talking because there are many women who are in that phase, and it would be very interesting to listen to some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So when I said that my husband is supportive, I shouldn't say it in a way that other people say, oh, I don't have a supportive. Not like that. But what he did tell me, it's like some truths he had to din into my head. He said, if you want to do this course, you have to give up all your previous expectations of how you functioned in the house. So whether it's, anyway, I never had a cook or a full-time servant, even now I don't. So what he said, you understand what he said. It was in my head that, I must be able to do all the things that I was doing earlier. So he said, first thing is you have to give up that expectation for yourself. Then you will be free. That was important to hear. I mean, not that he was saying it, anybody else also saying it would have been an important point. So once I got that into my head, then I said, okay, why don't I just have a family conclave? So I had the children and my husband, and I said, look, I want to do this course. I've got in with a lot of difficulty and I'm doing very well so far. It's going well. I want to complete it. And so I want to tell you all, I'm not asking permission. I want to tell you all, things will be a little different and you may have to come in and help and understand, but that's how it is.
Wonderful.
I had to say.
So nice. So friends, you are waiting to hear what Usha Aunty did next, what all challenges she faced, and her journey through the remaining avatars? We will do that in the next episode. To be frank, when I recorded this, it was meant to be one episode, but while listening to it during editing, I did not want to sacrifice any of the points shared by her in my attempts to make the episode short. I felt there is so much to learn from what she is saying, so I decided to split the chat with her into 2 episodes. We will continue to listen to this amazing woman in a later episode. Do visit my website, thenewindianwoman.com, for related blogs on this topic. Of course, I would love to hear from you. You could rate or leave a comment in your podcast app or write to me at krishna@thenewindianwoman.com. Remember, you are what you want to be, and the time starts now.